The prison was not on a planet. It was not on a moon, an asteroid, or even tethered to any gravitational body at all. It drifted in the interstellar void between the Varnic spiral and the empty halo beyond, where no light touched and no species dared to look too long. They called it Vaskrol Station, but its official designation was less poetic: Containment Unit 9A Theta. Its purpose was singular hold the galaxy's most dangerous beings in permanent isolation, out of reach, out of mind. The first human to ever set foot near it wasn't a soldier, diplomat, or scientist. He wasn't sent by any Earth government or galactic alliance. His name was Grant Keller, and he was a salvage technician from Missouri. Grant floated in the cockpit of his retrofitted tug, the Raccoon, chewing on a protein bar and staring at the blinking distress beacon on his console. "Vaskrol Station," he mumbled. "Unregistered signal, deep void, no patrols, probably derelict, maybe automated." "Could be a score," he tapped the comm switch. "Control, this is Grant Keller. I'm pinging an uncharted signal, location transmitted. Requesting clearance to investigate and claim salvage." Silence. He tried again. Nothing. "Well, guess we're off the grid." He punched in the coordinates and engaged the burn. The tug shuddered as it changed course. Grant leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Let's see what you've got." 6 hours later, he was suiting up. The Raccoon had latched onto the outer hull of Vaskrol Station with its magnetic clamps. The station was massive, easily the size of a city, and utterly silent. No external lights, no movement, no response to hails, but the emergency beacon was strong. He stepped into the airlock, double-checked his seals, and cycled through. The external hatch opened with a groaning hiss. Inside, the corridor was dark save for the flickering red of emergency lights. "Lights are dead, gravity stable," he muttered. "Air's thin but breathable. Not bad for a ghost." He moved carefully, scanning with his wrist pad. The inner doors were sealed, but he found a manual override and cranked it open. The corridor beyond was scorched, blackened in places, signs of plasma scoring, carbon scoring. Something had happened here. He descended into the core levels, following the beacon. He passed sealed cell blocks, observation decks, and broken security terminals. The deeper he went, the more damage he saw: exploded bulkheads, melted doors. He paused at one junction where a sign had been scorched halfway, still readable: Cell Block Omega, Class Z inmates, no organic access without Level 9 clearance. "Class Z," he whispered. What the hell was this place? He pushed forward. The beacon led him to a control center, half-collapsed and filled with smoke residue. Consoles sparked weakly. He found the source of the signal, a battered emergency systems panel still sending its SOS. He cut it off. Then he heard a deep, metallic clang, echoing distantly through the corridor he'd just come from. He froze. Another clang. Closer. "Okay, not a ghost ship," he muttered. He turned, weapon drawn, a compact plasma cutter modified for close quarters. He crept toward the sound. He found it at the far end of a corridor, an open cell. The door had been torn clean off. Inside, something moved, large, slow. Grant raised the cutter. "Stay back, I'm armed." The figure stepped into the dim red light. It was an alien, tall, at least 8 feet, its skin a deep bluish hue mottled with scars. It looked at him with eyes that shimmered faintly. "You are not one of them," it said. "You speak English?" I consumed a guard who did. Grant took a cautious step back. The alien didn't move. "I am not your enemy, human. I was imprisoned here. We all were, trapped, forgotten. There are more of you, hundreds. This station was built to house those deemed too dangerous. Some were, many were not. Why would they dump you all here? Fear. And politics." Grant lowered the cutter slightly. "You're saying you're innocent?" "I am saying we were all labeled monsters and no one ever checked twice." Another voice called out from behind him, a different alien, smaller, with a reptilian appearance. "He speaks truth, human." "This place is a tomb." Grant turned slowly. More figures emerged from the shadows, all different species, all scarred and worn. "All right," Grant said. "If you're all prisoners, how are you loose?" the first alien, the tall one, answered. "There was a riot. Years ago, systems failed. No reinforcements came. Eventually, the station gave up on itself," Grant exhaled. "So why didn't you just leave?" "No access to the docking systems, no ships. The main hangar is sealed behind biometric locks requiring human DNA. We've tried, we cannot open it." Grant looked around the corridor. "So you're saying I'm the first human you've seen in years?" "Yes. And if I help you, you won't eat me," the reptilian one tilted its head. "Only if you betray us." "Fair enough." He spent the next hour moving through the station, escorted by two of the less intimidating inmates. He verified their claims: hundreds of sealed cells, most damaged or open. The life support systems were hanging on by a thread, and the main hangar, as described, was sealed by a biometric lock. Human only, he stood in front of the control panel, sweat dripping down his back. "This thing still works," the reptilian nodded. "It has power. We've kept this sector alive at the expense of all others." Grant placed his hand on the pad. It blinked. Processing, then, access granted. The doors groaned open. Inside was a single shuttle, dusty but intact. The crowd gathered behind him, silent. Watching, Grant turned. "I open those doors, you all scatter. I'm not starting an intergalactic war." The tall one stepped forward. "We don't want war, we want freedom," he nodded. "Then let's fix this bucket up." It took 3 days. He had to reroute power, repair 2 of the shuttle's drives, and manually bypass a fried guidance system. He worked non-stop, eating ration bars and dozing between cycles. On the 4th day, the shuttle roared to life. He stood by the ramp, grease on his face and arms sore. "It's ready." The tall alien stepped forward. "You are unlike any human I have known." "Good, I like to keep expectations low." The aliens filed in, quiet, orderly. No one pushed. No one ran. Grant watched them board, then hesitated. The tall one looked back. "You are not coming. This is your ride. I need to report this place, get it shut down for good. Let someone know what happened here. You will be hunted for this." "I've been hunted for less." The alien extended a hand. Grant took it. "Your name, human?" "Grant Keller." The tall alien nodded. "I am Vaskrol. Remember us." The ramp closed. The shuttle lifted off, turned toward the stars, and vanished. Grant stood alone in the hangar, eyes on the dark. Then he turned and limped back toward the raccoon. His hands were cut, knuckles raw. His ribs ached from the fall he took 2 days ago in the coolant shaft. He needed a hospital, a real bed, and probably a full psych evaluation. But all he could think about was the look on their faces as they left. Not rage, not fear. Hope. And in a place like Vaskrol, that was the rarest thing of all. The bruises across Grant's ribs had turned a deep, wine-colored purple by the time he pried open the raccoon's medkit. His left hand trembled as he sprayed antiseptic over a shallow gash on his thigh. The nozzle sputtered halfway through, hissed pitifully, and died. "Figures," he muttered. "Stranded in a cosmic oubliette, and the damn medfoam gives up first." He leaned back against the metal bulkhead, breathing shallowly to avoid the ribs shifting. The raccoon's cabin smelled like scorched wiring and stale coffee. Half the ship's systems were flickering or non-responsive, including the internal heating. He wrapped himself in a thermal blanket from the emergency locker and stared out at the inert shape of Vaskrol Station, slowly rotating in the black. He hadn't slept more than 10 minutes at a time in over a day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the station's scorched corridors, the heavy silence, the way the inmates had stood just far enough back not to intimidate but still close enough to prove they could. He knew they'd left. He'd watched the shuttle vanish. But something about the quiet unnerved him. At some point he passed out. When he woke again, the emergency lamps had dimmed and his left boot was soaked in blood. The gash on his leg had opened further. He peeled the fabric back, winced, and grabbed a roll of gauze with gritted teeth. It took him 20 minutes to wrap it. The pain was manageable until he tried to stand. Something shifted in his side and his vision whited out. He collapsed onto the floor, teeth bared, breath coming short and fast. "Okay," he whispered. "That's broken." Great! He didn't have a working comms array anymore, not since the station's systems had backfed a surge through his console. The raccoon's backup beacon was buried under a crate of spare coolant tanks. He could rig it manually if he could stay conscious long enough. He dragged himself across the floor, one arm wrapped around his ribs, the other pulling his weight. Every inch felt like a mile. Sweat soaked through his undershirt, then chilled immediately in the freezing air. By the time he reached the crate, he was shaking. He didn't realize he'd blacked out again until a strange clicking noise yanked him awake. The crate was open. The spare beacon was gone. Something moved near the engine stabilizers. A shadow just past the edge of the emergency lights. Grant blinked, heart thudding. "Who's there?" a low chirp answered, then a thud. Then silence. He reached for the cutter, but it wasn't on his belt anymore. He scanned the floor. Nothing. Another chirp closer this time, then a voice scratchy and halting like a radio dial not quite tuned. "You left. The door." "Unsealed," he froze. "What door?" "The forward hatch, pressurized but not locked." The voice was in his head now, not from outside, like a pressure building behind his eyes. Then, from the shadows, something stepped forward, not tall, not large, thin, almost wiry. Covered in overlapping plates of translucent carapace that shimmered faintly in the dim light, it had no mouth. Its eyes were unfocused, like it wasn't looking at him exactly, more like through him. "I was not part of the group," it said. "They feared me." "Even in here? You came from the station?" "Yes." Grant tried to sit up straighter and immediately regretted it. "I didn't see your cell." "I was not in a cell." That gave him pause. "Then where the hell were you?" "Inside the walls, between systems, feeding." He stared. "You mean literally?" The creature moved closer, clicking softly. "I was energy once, forced into form. They tried to contain me, could not, so they forgot." Grant exhaled. "You stowed aboard. You left them paths." "I followed." "I wasn't trying to, I know." He coughed, the sound harsh and wet. "What do you want?" The creature tilted its head. "You helped them escape. You opened what they could not." "I am curious. They see you as fragile, but you endured damage your body should not." "You moved with broken parts. You applied pressure to wounds with shaking hands. You slept in intervals not sufficient for recovery." Grant gave a tired chuckle. "Humans call that being stubborn. Stubbornness is a low-yield survival trait, but in you it breeds results." He tried to stand again. This time, he managed to get one knee under him before collapsing sideways. The creature didn't move to help, it just watched. "You gonna kill me?" Grant asked. "No, why not? You are a variable. I do not understand you." "That is rare," he grunted, pulling himself upright against the bulkhead. "You want answers. You could have asked before I ripped half the skin off my leg dragging this crate open." "I do not learn by asking. I learn by observing." "Well, observe this. I'm about to pass out again, and if I do, I might not wake up." The creature clicked once. Then it moved to the crate, reached inside, and retrieved the beacon. It examined the device, turned it, studied the wiring. "You are trying to signal others, preferably someone with a med bay and a sandwich." It opened the casing, rerouted 2 connections, and handed it over. Grant stared. "You just hot-wired an emergency transponder." It was inefficiently designed. "You humans waste energy on redundancy." He activated it, watched the green light blink. "If this actually works." "It will." He leaned back. "What's your name?" "I have none." "Not even a designation." There was one. "But it is attached to a project I no longer recognize as self." "Mind if I call you Click?" The creature paused. "You may." A soft beep sounded from the beacon. "Signal confirmed," Grant said. "Now we wait." Click settled near the far wall, folding its limbs inward like a preying insect. Grant closed his eyes. "You said you fed on energy. You planning to eat my ship?" "No, you are not a food source." "Thanks. I am not here to harm, only to learn." "Learn what?" "Why you open cages others never dare to touch." He cracked one eyelid open. "Because they built the cages wrong." Click didn't respond. Grant drifted into unconsciousness again. This time he didn't dream. 5 hours later, the raccoon jolted with the docking impact of a responder frigate. Grant woke to the hiss of cycling airlocks and the clatter of boots. A medic crouched beside him, scanning him with a handheld unit. Fractured 5th and 6th, laceration to the thigh, mild internal bleeding. "Hey," Grant rasped, "don't sugarcoat it. Pulse is good, you're lucky." Relative term, they lifted him onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him toward the exit ramp, he saw Click vanish into the shadows near the coolant vents, unseen by the responders. He didn't say anything. He just closed his eyes again. By the time they reached the med bay on the frigate, Grant was on a drip and half sedated. The attending physician cleaned the leg wound and ordered scans of his abdomen. "The ribs," she said, "would heal slower than he liked. Standard healing time is 6 weeks, she added. "I've got 2, he mumbled. "You'll have 6. He drifted again, this time into real sleep, no dreams. Just the rhythmic beep of machines and the steady pulse of sedation. 2 days later, he was sitting upright when the ship's captain entered. A tall, broad-shouldered woman with silver, threaded hair and eyes that scanned like scanners. "You're Grant Keller, last I checked. You triggered a Class 7 evac protocol near a black site we weren't supposed to know existed." "Yeah, sorry about that." She folded her arms. "The beacon you used was routed through something non-standard." "You want to explain that?" he shrugged. "Modified it on instinct. Guess I got lucky." She didn't look convinced. "There's no trace of the inmates, no shuttle on any trajectory." "It's like they vanished. I guess they wanted it that way. You know, harboring escaped prisoners. I didn't harbor anyone. I repaired a shuttle and opened a door. What they did with it after that wasn't my call." She stared at him for a long moment. "You're being transferred to a central facility for debrief. Can't wait." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, internal logs from your ship show. Anomalous energy readings. Something moved through your systems that wasn't you." He said nothing. She frowned, then left. Grant leaned back slowly, feeling each rib protest. Behind the medbay curtain, something chirped once, quiet. Almost amused, he smiled without opening his eyes. "You still here?" the chirp repeated. "Good." Grant's ribs creaked as he swung his legs over the edge of the medbay cot. The painkillers had worn thin, leaving behind a dull, tooth-deep ache that flared every time he shifted. He adjusted the compression brace around his torso, gripping the edge of the cot until the nausea passed. "You're not cleared to stand," said the medic. She was a broad-shouldered woman with tired eyes and a tattoo of a solar flare just visible under her collar. "I'm not planning to run laps," he replied, teeth clenched. "I just need to breathe somewhere that doesn't smell like antiseptic and overcooked protein paste." She handed him a mobility stick without a word. He took it with a grateful nod and limped toward the observation deck. The glass wall stretched wide, curving into the hull like a dome. Outside, the stars looked frozen, not due to distance, but because the frigate had gone into a slow drift. He lowered himself into the nearest reinforced seat, exhaling sharply. "You didn't just open a door," said a voice to his left. He glanced sideways. The ship's science officer was perched on the edge of the console, long limbs folded neatly. Definitely not human, her skin shimmered with a layer of fine scales that caught the station's ambient light in shifting colors. "You were there when they picked me up," he said. She nodded. "You looked like someone who'd fought a war with gravity and lost." "I won. Barely." "Why didn't you report what you found in the station's database?" "Because it was scrubbed. Whoever built that place didn't want a paper trail." "You're not going to find records, personnel logs, or even a name." "We know. The only readable data was a list of containment protocols that contradict every known interspecies ethics charter." He folded his hands over his lap. "Then why am I still being treated like a suspect?" "Because most people don't survive a facility like that. And you didn't just survive, you left with a story no one can verify." He met her eyes. "You want to verify it? Check the shuttle's trajectory." "They didn't go far. There's no trace." "Well, they didn't vaporize. Someone took them in, possibly, or they scattered." He looked back out at the stars. "They deserved to." "The council disagrees." "I'm not under council jurisdiction." I'm a freelance contractor with a Class C salvage license and a ship that's currently missing 2 stabilizers and a working toilet. You're also the first human to breach a prison we didn't even know existed. Not my fault your maps are incomplete." She smiled faintly, not unkindly. "You should rest." "I've been resting, my back's starting to fuse with the mattress." A soft chirp sounded from the corridor. A crew member passed by, nodding without stopping. Behind them, a maintenance drone rolled past, its manipulators twitching erratically. Grant watched it disappear, then leaned forward, grimacing. "You ever seen something that doesn't fit, like not just unfamiliar but wrong, like a square peg in a round dimension? I've worked on black-site recon. I've seen worse than wrong. There was something on that station. Not like the others. It didn't want out, it just wanted to watch. Did it speak? Not exactly. It used my systems, manipulated the ship's wiring, rewired a beacon in under a minute." Her brow furrowed. "You're saying it was sentient energy," it said it used to be. "Now it's trying out being a bug." "I assume that's metaphorical," he gave a small shrug. "Honestly, I'm not sure." She stood, brushing non-existent dust from her thigh. "You're lucky we found you when we did." "Your leg was close to necrosis." "I've had worse." "I doubt that." "Then you haven't seen Missouri in winter." She didn't laugh, but her expression softened. "You'll be discharged tomorrow. The council's chosen to classify the incident and close the case." He frowned. "Just like that. They don't want questions. You'll be paid out under a salvage clause and given a transport allowance." "I didn't do it for a payout." "Then take the money and fix your ship." He didn't answer. She walked toward the exit, then paused. "You said the entity didn't leave. Is it still with you?" "No, you're sure? If it were, I doubt we'd be having this conversation." She nodded, satisfied. "Then I guess this is over." "Not for them." She didn't reply. That night he slept without interruption. No beeps, no hissing airlocks, no alien chirps. The next morning he was cleared to leave. The cylindrical docking bay housed only one small transport shuttle, beige and battered. As he limped toward it, a mechanic handed him a datapad. "Ship's been preloaded with coordinates. One jump to the nearest station hub. From there, you're on your own." Wouldn't have it any other way. The shuttle was cramped but functional. He settled into the pilot's seat, ran a quick systems check, and paused at the nav menu. The coordinates led to a mid-tier station near the Talari trade expanse. No questions, no customs. He hesitated, then entered new coordinates. The screen displayed a warning. Uncharted vector. Risk level, extreme, he confirmed. The shuttle's engines hummed to life. He hit the ignition and the stars stretched into lines. 3 days later, he arrived at a debris field just outside a dwarf nebula. The remains of a ship drifted in slow, endless rotation, hull blackened, engines cold. No distress signal, no heat signature. He scanned for life. Nothing. He powered down the engines and floated closer using maneuvering thrusters. The shuttle latched onto the wreck's airlock using a magnetic tether. He suited up, checked his helmet seals, and crossed the umbilical bridge. The interior was scorched but intact. Signs of abandonment: ration packs, stripped wiring, a half-burned datapad still wedged behind a vent. He opened it, one file. No encryption, a short message, no names. No location, just a single line: "We are not prisoners. We are witnesses." He exhaled slowly. Then he left the datapad where it was, resealed the hatch, and returned to his shuttle. As the engines powered up, he looked once more at the slowly turning wreck. Not a grave, a marker. Back on the shuttle, he rerouted to the station hub. He submitted the salvage claim, filed a private notice under anonymous credentials, and transferred the shuttle's ownership to a local dock worker without explanation. By the end of the day, he'd booked passage on a long-haul freighter headed for a quiet system with no military presence. No council offices and no questions. He traveled light. Just a duffel, a patched coat, and a leg that still ached in the cold. No one recognized him. He found work fixing agricultural drones and hydro pumps. Nothing glamorous. Nothing risky. Sometimes, he'd wake up before sunrise and stare out at the horizon where the sky turned a pale, dusty red. not looking for anything, just remembering. And somewhere far beyond that sky, the ones he'd let go were carving out lives of their own. No more cages, no more numbers, just names. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough.